So we are live. Hi everyone, welcome back to Code Era. Today in this video we'll be discussing the LeetCode daily challenge for 6th of February. The name of the problem is remove duplicates from sorted array 2. Previously this problem has been asked in organizations like Google. It's also been asked in Amazon and Adobe. So consider giving me a +1 in the chat if my voice is clearly audible to all of you and the screen is visible, because this is a good problem. I would say it's not a medium problem, actually it's a easy to medium level problem, so it's an easier problem, but the thing is that if you will think too much, then you will not be able to solve this problem. So I'll be telling you in this problem like what's the most optimal and the most basic way to think when you encounter such problems, right? So consider giving me a +1 in the chat if my voice is audible to everyone and the screen is visible, and then immediately within a few seconds I'll start with this problem, right? We'll just wait for some time for everyone else to join and then we'll start with this problem, right? As I told you previously, this problem has been asked in organizations like Google, Facebook, Amazon and Adobe. So you can just quickly give me a +1 in the chat so that I can start. We'll be good to go. And today I have, in the description of this video, I've provided the C++ as the Java as well as the Java code as it was suggested by all of you, right? So this particular problem says that you have to remove duplicates from sorted array, right? This is what the problem says. So let me write this question. The question says that you have to, okay, you can just give me a +1 in the chat for a little bit of acknowledgement so that we'll be good to go, right? So what you have to do is you have to remove duplicates from sorted array, right? This is what you have to do in this particular problem. And in this particular problem, like, there is a twist. What is the twist? So let's read out the problem statement. So first of all, the array is sorted, that's perfect. But the problem says that you will be given an integer array nums which will be sorted in non-decreasing order. So that basically means in ascending order kind of, right? And you have to remove some duplicate elements in place. In place means that you will not be using any extra space, right? You have to remove it in place such that each unique element appears at most twice. So one element can appear at most twice. Like if there are 3 occurrences of 1, so in that case you will only write 2 occurrences of 1 in the final answer. Like if there are 5 occurrences of 1, in that case also you will only give 2 occurrences of 1 in the final answer. This is how you have to do it. And the relative order of the element should be kept the same. So the relative of the order of the element should be the same. So that is also one more thing that's given. So since it is impossible to change the length of the array in some languages, you must instead have the result placed in the first part of the array. That is the first part, like whichever part is there in the initial array, you will place it. And more formally what you have to do is like, let's say you are removing k elements, so the first n minus k elements that would be there, all those elements should be the sorted array in which the duplicate element is not occurring more than once, right? So basically 2 times a duplicate element can occur, and you have to do this task in order of 1 time. Like if I'll take some example, so if the problem example is 1 1 1 2 2 3, right? If the example is 1 1 1 2 2 3, if the example is 1 1 1, then 2 2 3, right? So for this particular example, what I could do is I can easily observe that for this particular example, if I'll check, so 1 is occurring 2 times, 1 is occurring 3 times, but I cannot write a duplicate element. I cannot write an element more than once in the final answer. So I'll say 1 1, then 2 is occurring 2 times, so I'll say okay, 2 is occurring 2 times, then I'll write 3, and this particular one which is left, maybe I can write it somewhere here, or it does not matter, like, right? Maybe I'll just have to return this much part, like this much part of the array, this much part, like till this index only I'll return. Forget about the last index. I'll say that I'll have to return only till this index or this point, right? So that means this much number of elements, right? This way I have to return it. Like let's say if I had 4 ones, if I had something like this, if I had maybe, let's say 4 ones, 1 1 1 1, and let's say I had 3 number of 2s, and then I had, let's say, 5 number of 3s, like this, right? If I have this, something like this, if I had something like this, then what would be the answer? The answer would be nothing but 1 1, then 2 2, and then 3 3. Like this would be the answer. So I'll return this index, right? Here my I would be 0, here my I would be 1, here my I would be 2, here my I would be 3, here it would be 4, here it would be 5. So I'll return this particular index, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Please give me a +1 in the chat if this part makes sense, right? If this much part makes sense to all of you, then you can give me a +1 in the chat. Does this make sense? Okay, right. So moving ahead with this problem, so this is what you have to do. Like, let's see what they will be doing. Like if they had 111 triple one, then double two and three, and they had 11223. So they do not care that what is the happening after that. Basically, you have to output 5. What is 5? 5 is basically nothing but the index, right? Index, right? So in the end, you just have to return index. So if you take a one base indexing, in that case you can do that. Like if I had this array, right, the original array 111 22 3 3, something like this, right? If I had this array, then what I will do is 1 1, then 2 2, and then 3 3, right? So the total number of elements are what? 6, right? Total number of elements are 6 in this array, where a particular unique element is not occurring more than twice, right? And the array is in place, it is sorted, right? The positions are not changed. How will you do this? So you want in the final answer, you want that in your array it should happen that the array that you are having, it should not have more than 2 occurrences of a particular element, right? If it has more than 2 occurrences, then in that case you will not want to fill it into your final answer. So this is what you will try to do. So what you will try to do is, let's say you have the example 1 1 triple one double two and 3, right? If you have this example, let's take this example. So if you have 1 1 1, then 2 2, and then let's say 3. This was the example, right? Let me check. Yeah, right, this was the example. So in this example, what you will be doing is, like if you have this particular example given to you, so what you will do, you will first of all mark, maybe you can do what, you can think of comparing the adjacent elements, right? You will think of comparing this element with this element, then this element with this element, then this particular element with this element, this element with this element, this element with this element, right? Like this, you will compare 2 adjacent elements, right? If they are same, then in that case you will think of doing something. If they are not the same, then you will think of something, right? This is what will be the beginner's approach, will be the normal approach of approaching this problem. Now what you can do is the very first element that is there, it will always be included in your answer, right? So since you want to check what you want to check for a particular, let's say for a particular index j, you want to check for j minus 1, right? You want to check for the current element, you want to check whether for the current element at the index j, whether its previous element at the index j minus 1, if both are same or both are different. In both the cases you will be taking different steps, right? So what you will be saying is that this particular element 1, and also you just have to return the final answer, right? You have to return this particular, in this particular array only. Suppose this is array ARR. So what you can do is, you can like imagine this array ARR here also. So let me write it for you. So this is 1, this is 1, this is 1, this is 2, this is 2, this is 3, right? So this is the array that we have. Up till now, if things are clear to you, then you can write a +1 in the chat. Okay. What you will be doing is, you first of all point your j here, somewhere here, and your I will be pointed at the beginning, right? You point your I to the beginning. So don't worry, these two arrays are same, but I am just talking for the imaginative purpose, right? I'll merge these two, but both of them are same, but they do not belong to different arrays, right? Though both the arrays are same, so I'm not taking any duplicate array or something like that. I'm just trying to make you imagine. So my j is here, right? So for a particular j, I'll check j minus 1. That's perfect. So what I'm saying is, my I would be pointing here initially, right? So let's take this particular array only. Let's take the original array only, right? So what I'm saying is, currently my I would be here, right? My I is pointing at this particular point. What is happening? My j is here. So can I say that the count of the very first element is 1? Initially I'll say that the count of the element is 1. Count of the current element is 1. Current element is what? This particular element, right? I'll say this is 1. Now what I'll do is, I'll iterate from j will start from 1, as I said. J will start from this index 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So j will start from the index 1. If my a of j is equal to a of j minus 1. If my a of j is equal to j minus 1, right? If my jth element is equal to the previous element, right? J minus 1th element. So in that case, I need to take different steps, right? If my a of j is equal to a of j minus 1, right? If that is the case or that is not the case, these are the two things that can happen. If this is the case, else if this is not the case, then what we'll do, right? If this is the case, right? If my a of j is equal to a of j minus 1, in that case, what will I do? That's the thing that lies ahead. So if the a of j is equal to a of j minus 1, like if the current element is equal to the previous element, then I will simply say that okay, for now I'll just move my j to the next point. Okay, I'll say that maybe I just need to move my j to the next point. So I'll say that okay, let's do a j plus plus like this, right? I'll show you a little bit of code insights for that. Like what I'll be doing is, if my hi Shreya, right, what I'm saying is this thing, if my a of j is equal to a of j minus 1, in that case what I'll say is, I'll say this thing, right? I'll mark my counter as 1 if it's equal, right? If it's equal, let me come back to this part. If it's equal, then what I'll say is, if these elements are equal, right? If this is equal to this, like if this particular element, this is j, if this is j, right, this is j. So if this element is j, with respect to this element, this is j minus 1th element. If this element is j and this is the j minus 1th element, so can I safely say that if this is the jth element and this is the j minus 1th element, if both are same, then what I'll check is, if the count of the current element, that is this element, right? If count of the element that I have initially, currently my count is 1, right? So if my count is lesser than 2, in that case what I'll say is, I'll say that okay, let's mark a of I is equal to a of j. Let's mark it like this. So what does that mean? So I'll say that okay, that is perfectly fine, because that is something that I can do, right? Like this particular case, what I'm saying is, I'll have my I as 1 also. Okay, I'll have my I as 1 also. Like in this case, like you can see, my I would be pointing here as well. Like I'll mark my I here also. So I'll say that if both the elements are same and the counter is lesser than 2, so is the count of 1 lesser than 2? Yes, the count of 1 is lesser than 2. In that case, what I'll say that okay, I'll mark my, at this particular index 1 should be remain side, right? So I'll move my I and j to this particular point. I moves to this point and j will also move to this point, and then I'll increase the count of 1. So count plus plus. So that means that the counter of 1 increases to 2. Now the counter of 1 is not 1, the counter of 1 is 2. Now what will happen? I will check. So the jth element is this element, that is 1, and the j minus 1th element is this element, right? 1. Both the elements are same. If both the elements are same, then in that case what will happen? I'll come back to this loop, j and j minus 1th element. The current element of the, shares this part clear to you? You can give me a +1 in the chat, right? If the jth element and the j minus 1th element are same, like this element and this element both are same, right? If both the elements are same, in that case what will I do? I will check if the counter is lesser than 2. Here is the counter less than 2? No, the counter is not less than 2, right? Here the counter is not less than 2. So what I'll do, the counter is not less than 2, man. So if the counter is not less than 2, so in that case I'll not perform this particular operation, right? So what I'll do next, my j moves to this particular point, right? After that my j will move to this particular point, and what will happen? My counter is still 2. Now what is my I? I is pointing, like what is my j? Now my j is pointing to this particular element, that is 2. And what is j minus 1? J minus 1 is 1. So is my a of j and a of j minus 1 equal? No, my a of j and a of j minus 1, that is the current element, and the previous element is not equal. If they are not equal, so I'll come to this else part. What I'll do in this else part, I'll make my counter as 1, because this 2 is occurring for the very first time, right? This element at the jth index is occurring for the very first time, right? So I'll mark my counter as 1, and I'll say that a of I, I'll also do I plus plus here, right? I'll say that a of I is equal to nothing but what? A of I what? A of I is what? Like I was here, right? I was here. So a of I is equal to what? A of j. I'll mark it like this, so that this 2 instead of this 1, now I'll have this 2 here, right? Because I cannot have more than 2 occurrences, right? So I'll write it like this. Let me explain you a little bit more by making some more space, by clearing space, so that you can understand it a better. Up till now, things are clear to everyone. Like if you have 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. If you have this particular array, let's say this array is ARR. I'm making another array which is same like this array only, 1, 1, 1. 2, 2, 3. What I'm saying is, like both the arrays are same, I'm just making so that it looks tidy. It looks much more tidy to you. So what I'm saying is, I will be pointing to this particular index. J will also be pointing to this particular index at the start. So what I'll check is, I'll check if a of j is equal to a of j minus 1 or not. If a of j is equal to j minus 1, then I'll have a counter, right? Initially the counter is 1. So is a of j equal to a of j minus 1? Yes, it is equal. So if it is equal, so I'll check if the count is less than 2. So currently my count is 1, so that means 1 is occurring one number of times. So I'll say that if the counter is 1, so in that case what I'll say that okay, a of j is equal to a of I is equal to a of j. I'll say this. Okay, and I'll do I plus plus. Okay, so I moves. So my I will move. So my I will move to this particular point. So that means that 1 would remain here and I is now here. I standing at this particular point. Okay. Now what is happening? My j, after this loop, my j is getting updated to this particular point. Now what is happening? Is my a of I equal to a of j? Yes, my a of I is equal to a of j minus 1, right? No. Is my a of I minus, is my a of j equal to a of j minus 1? Are they both same? Yes, my a of j is equal to a of j minus 1. Why? Because like this particular element is a of j, this particular element is a of j minus 1. Both are same. So both are same, then what I check the counter. So counter is already 2 because the number of occurrences of 1 is 2 times I have seen 1. So now I don't want to see 1, right? So that's why I'll not update my array. So what I'll do is both are not same, right? So that's why what I'll do, my I and j are pointing to the same index, but my I will not move this time. My j moves, right? My I will still remain here. At this particular index, my I will remain, but I have drawn it a bit down so that you do not confuse with the pointers. Now what will happen is once I am at this 2, so is my a of j and a of j minus 1, are these two elements equal? No, a of j is 2 and a of j minus 1 is 1, right? So these two elements are not equal. So if they are not equal, so what I'll do is, if they are not equal, so I'll mark my counter as 1. I'll update my counter to 1 because this particular jth element, at the jth index is occurring for the first time. Like this particular 2 is occurring for the first time, right? That is why it is not equal to the previous element and the array is given to be sorted. So that means this 2 is occurring for the first time, so its counter becomes 1, right? And what I'll do is I'll mark my a of I is equal to a of j. So at this particular index, I'll update it with 2. I'll update this particular index with 2. Now this becomes 2. And I'll move my I by 1 pointer. So my I would be moving to this particular pointer, right? My I moves to this particular pointer. Next up, what will happen? My j also moves. So my j moves to this particular point. Now what happens is, okay, sorry. Now what happens is, if I have something like this, let me erase this part, right? Yeah, right. So if my I is standing here, right? If my j is standing here, now j is equal to the previous element, right? You can observe, you can hit the like button. J is, now what is j? J is nothing but pointing to 2. Now j is pointing to 2. And what is j minus 1? J minus 1 is I. J minus 1 is I. Both the elements are, j minus 1 is what? 2 and j is also 2. So the element at the index j minus 1 is 2, element at the index j is also 2. Both the elements are same, so what I'll check the counter. So currently the counter is 1, so that means that the counter is well under control. So that means that at this particular index I can update it with 2. So I'll update this index with 2. So it is already 2, so that's why it will not look into effect, but it will get updated. Like a of I is equal to a of j will happen. So at this particular index my I would be occurring. Now what will happen? I'll move my I to this particular pointer. Now the count of 2 is has become 2, so that was perfect. But now what will happen if I am at this particular, now my j would be pointing to this particular point. Now with respect to this particular point, my j is pointing here and my j minus 1th index is this index, right? If my j is pointing here and my j minus 1th index is pointing to 2, so are these two equal? No, they are not equal, right? If they are not equal, so what I'll do? If these elements are not equal, in that case what will I do? In that case I'll simply say, like this is what happening. Like you can see that the array is getting cropped, right? A little bit cropped in terms of indexes, right? Up till now, are things clear to you? You can write clear in the chat if things are clear to you guys, right? Are things getting clear to you guys? You can write clear in the chat, or you can give me a +1 for a little bit of acknowledgement. Shreya, Mahesh and others. Right, so now my pointer is at j. Now j, this particular index is not equal to this particular element is not equal to this particular element. So that means at this particular index I need to insert 3. Earlier here, which element we had? We had this element 2, right? We had this element 2. Why did we have 2 here? Because this was the original array, right? If you see original array, so at this particular index you had 2. But now you will update it with 3. You will update this particular index with 3. You will update it with 3, and now your eye would be pointing at this particular index. But in the end, when you will return your eye, so this particular array would be considered for checking. And this particular array is what? This particular array is having not more than 2 same elements, and all the elements are in sorted manner, right? Does this make sense to everyone? Please give me a +1 in the chat. Does this make sense? Right? This is nothing but a 2-pointer concept. What I did was, I first of all have the nums, that is the size. After that, I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 1. So what does it mean? The very first index 0 that I have, I'll always be considering that element, right? So because I want, for a particular j, I want to check for j minus 1. So that's why I want my counter to be 1, because the very first indexed element, the 0 index element, I have to consider it always. And apart from this, for a particular index j, I want j minus 1, right? Since I want, for a particular index j, I want j minus 1. So that is why I'll start my j from 1 and I from 1 as well, right? If I'll see j is less than n, every time after this loop is over, after this particular thing is over, I'll increment my j as I told you. So this is what I would be doing. If my nums of j is not equal to nums of j minus 1, if the jth element, what if there is an array of numbers 1, 1, no, this will not be the case. This will not be the case, because you are given a sorted array. You are given a sorted array. The question is saying remove duplicates from sorted array. Remove duplicates from sorted array. So you are already given a sorted array. So that is why this particular test case that you are talking about, this will not come into consideration, right? Mahesh, is it clear to you? I hope it's clear, right? So what I'm saying is, if my jth element is not equal to the j minus 1th element, then I'll mark my counter as 1, right? Because this is a unique element at the jth index, right? To remove the duplicate one. I hope that your thing was clear. What if there is an array or numbers, we are removing the duplicate, right? So if we are at 3, yeah, right. I hope that it's clear, right? So the count is equal to 1 here. Count is equal to 1, right? If the jth element is not equal to j minus 1th element, that means at the jth index, the jth element that I have at the index j, the element that I have, it is occurring for the first time, so I'll mark its counter as 1, and I'll do nums of I plus plus, that is at this particular index, I'll make the element j, right? What I'll do next, my I is getting updated. Notice that I will get updated after this. Otherwise, if the nums of j and j minus 1, if the current element and the previous element, if both of them are same, in that case I need to check for the frequency. If the count of that particular element that is repeating, if it is lesser than 2, in that case I will say that okay, nums of I plus plus is equal to nums of j. So that means at the ith index I will have j and I'll increment I plus plus, right? I'll increment I plus plus because I'll move to the next index so that I can update the next index. After that I increase the counter. Like let's suppose there are a lot of ones, right? So you will always come to the else part, and what will happen after 2 ones you have stored 1 and 1, so your I will stop moving, right? Like this. Let me tell you how. So if let's say you had a lot of ones, you have 5 ones, like let's say you have 5 ones, right? Like this, and you have 2 twos, something like this. Then what will happen? Your I is standing here, right? Your I is standing here and your j is also standing here. So you'll say that okay, this is perfect, this much part is perfect. Then what will happen? Your I will stand here, and your j will stand here as well. So your j will keep on moving because the counter will never be less than 2, right? Then what will happen? Your j will move here. Once your j moves to this point, so what will happen? You will check with j minus 1. So since j and j minus 1 are not same, so you'll mark your counter of 2 as 1. So you'll update your counter of 2 as 1. The counter of the current jth element at the jth index, you will mark it as 1. And what will happen? You will say that a of I is equal to a of j, like this. So what will happen? At this particular index, 2 will get updated. Instead of 1, now you will have 2. Now you'll have 2 instead of 1. So you'll have 2 here, right? And your I, you are doing I plus plus to update your I. So your I would be moving to this particular index, right? Then what will happen? Your count of 2 is 1, right? Then what will happen? Now your j moves to this particular index. If your j moves to this particular index, then what happens? If your j is moving to this index, then what can you observe? That the j minus 1th element is 2. Since both of them are same, so the whether I'll include it into my array or not, whether I'll include this particular jth element into my array or not, that depends on the count of 2. So the count is 1. Since the count is lesser than 2, so that's why I'll update my count and I'll say that okay, I'll include it. So at this particular index I'll say that okay, a of I is equal to nothing but a of j. I'll update it. So at this particular index I'll mark 2, and then what I'll do I plus plus. So my I would be moving at this part, I would be pointing at this particular point, but I'll consider only this much array because this is my final answer, right? 1 1 2 2, right? And the array that was I was originally given was 5 ones like this and 2 twos, but after some time it will decompose to this, and the ith pointer will be pointing, I will be pointing to nothing but 5, the index 5, that is I is equal to 5 is equal to the size of the array, right? Size of the desired array, right? Does this make sense? Please give me a +1, Shreya and Mahesh, please give me a +1 in the chat if this makes sense, right? Does this make sense to you guys? This is how it is getting updated, like this is how it is getting updated, this thing, this is what they will want. So that is what your eye is reflecting, the size. Okay, does this make sense to all of you? I hope that it does, right? Please give me a +1 in the chat, a quick +1 in the chat, a little acknowledgement would help, right? So for this approach we are iterating through the array months because like this, so it will take order of n time, and we are not using any extra pointer, so it will be order of 1 only. The time complexity would be order of n and the space complexity would be order of 1. Now let me show you the Java as well as the C++ code. Like what I said, I will mark my I to 1, j to 1. I'll mark my counter as 1 initially. J is lesser than n. Why j is 1 instead of 0? Why I is 1 instead of 0? Because the 0th index element you will always be including. If the current number, if the jth element is not equal to the previous element, that is j minus 1th element, in that case what will you do? You will say that okay, this particular element is coming for the first time, so you will mark your frequency as 1, you will mark its count as 1, and then what you will do, you will say that okay, nums of I is equal to nums of j, and you will do I plus plus, right? So you will move your I. After this, like j is moving every time after this if else is following, right? Now what you will do, you will see this, if the count of 2, a count is lesser than 2, in that case you will say okay, nums of I is equal to nums of j, and in that case what you are doing, you are doing an I plus plus, so you are moving your I index, right? And you are doing count plus plus, this is what you are doing, and ultimately you are doing j plus plus every time. In the end you just have to return I, that is the size. Okay, does this make sense? And the Java code is very much similar. The only difference in Java code is that you have to find length like this, nums.length. Okay, so I've provided the link to the Java as well as the C++ code in the description of this video, so you can consider to check this out. Thanks a lot for watching. If there is any other doubt, so you can mention that in the comments. Like I'm here for maybe 60 seconds more. If you want to say something, if you want to ask something, you can ask. Otherwise we'll end the stream, right? Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear to you, Shreya, as well? I hope that it's clear. Okay. Thanks a lot.